Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where we just love our community. Thank you so much for watching, for tuning in, and especially to all of you who went over to Trail Grazers, our brand new channel, to check it out. My gosh, we got 5,000 subscribers in one day, so that was very gratifying to us. And so thank you so very much. If you haven't been over there, go check it out. There are seven videos over there that are also, some of them are related to food storage and to emergency preparedness that you might find interesting, especially if you have a freeze dryer. So if you have not subscribed yet to Rose Red Homestead, to this channel, please do so, and click that bell so you can get the notifications when we post. We're going to be posting some pretty interesting things coming up, so we're hoping that you will be notified so that you can get right on top of things. Our new release times, usually I've been releasing at 10 a.m., but our videos from now on are going to be released at 6 p.m. in the evenings. It just is better for my work schedule. It will save me some time. It will give me some extra time that I need sometimes on the videos. So 6 p.m. is going to be our release time. Also, we wanted to announce that we are now Amazon affiliates. And while we said we were not ever going to do anything like that, we have been urged by so many of our viewers to please do it, please do it. And someone even suggested we could give all or part of the money to charity. And so that is exactly what we have done, and it has helped us feel better about it. And just know that we are not going to put anything in our Amazon store that we have not purchased ourselves and think it's good equipment. And it's on our website. Just click on our website, which is roseredhomestead.com. Right up at the top pink border, there are two Amazon stores, one for Rose Red Homestead and one for Trail Grazers. I'm putting Trail Grazers store there as well. And the only reason I have to have two stores is that I can only list 20 things the way it's set up. I've got to learn a different way to set it up, but right now that's the only thing I know how to do. So feel free to shop in both places, so whatever you would like. Today we are going to talk about something that I heard from a number of our viewers. You know, every once in a while something hits YouTube and it becomes like a sensation. And evidently this video did, because it was the idea that you can water bath can everything. Well, that is not a new idea. Others have posted that as well. But the questions I'm getting from our viewers are, Pam, could you just take a look at this and tell me, is it safe, is it safe? In the first place, I generally don't watch other YouTube channels. You know, if I were retired, I keep saying this, if I were retired, then I could. I just don't have time in my schedule. I'm doing other things for our channel. But this time I did take a look at this, and I was impressed by the woman, and I'm sorry I don't remember her name or even what her channel was, but she had interviewed an Amish woman and was allowed to go in the woman's house and learn how they do canning, and even got some of this Amish woman's recipes for canning. And the way that she presented it, I thought was very fair. And so I am not criticizing her at all. But what Jim and I want to ensure that our viewers, our community, knows how to do when these sensational things come out and someone makes a claim is that we can make informed decisions on our own. That you don't have to come to me and say, is it safe, is it safe? I'm happy to answer that, and we're going to answer that today. But the time may come when we don't have internet, when we don't have each other to ask, is it safe? And so what Jim and I are wanting to do more than anything is to help our community become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and making informed decisions based on what you know about the science behind things. And that's where we're going to go today, so that you can answer the question, is water bath canning everything safe? Now, the Amish have done it for generations. They don't seem to have a problem with it. I'm not going to criticize anyone for doing anything. But what we're going to look at is taking a look at water bath canning everything. So I'm going to stop for a second and just share a little story, a true story from my previous teaching. Years and years ago, when I was teaching 6th grade in Texas, I got a new little boy in my class. He was from Mexico. Now, I was 2 weeks into a unit on teaching long division to my 6th graders, and they were getting it pretty well. I was really pleased. Long division can sometimes be really tough for people. And so I put some problems on the board and had my students work those problems. And as I was grading their papers, I came to our new boy's paper, and I looked at how he had done his long division. It was totally different, completely. His algorithm for doing long division, I couldn't even make sense of. And yet, he had the right answers for every single one. So I called him back to my desk, and I had him teach me his way of doing long division. It was beautiful. It was elegant. I was so excited to learn a new way of coming up with the same answer, and I had him teach the whole class his way of how to do long division. And they loved it. We had a lot of fun with it. And for the rest of that year, when I gave math tests, some of the students would work their long division problems the Mexico way, which was perfectly fine. It was reasonable, and it came out with the right answer. I know, and I'm sure that you do too, that there are many ways to accomplish often the very same outcome. That old saying, there's more than one way to skin a something.
Cat.
Oh yeah, a cat. Oh, I don't even like the thought of that. It's true. There are many pathways to a same outcome. If we apply that to canning, one of the best examples I can think of is the difference between vacuum sealing and oxygen absorbers. I get asked all the time, which do I do for this and which do I do for that and which one is better? It's long division the American way, long division the Mexico way. It is 6s. You can do either one. They both accomplish the same thing. However, the same thing is not true for every aspect of canning. When it comes to botulism, we need to be sure that we understand the science behind that so we can make informed decisions about whether or not we're going to Waterbath can everything. Well, what about botulism anyway? The botulism, Clostridium botulinum, is probably the most studied bacterium in the world because of its relationship to food. It is a very heat-resistant organism. You know, we can Waterbath can because E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, those things can all be destroyed in food at 180 degrees. And so boiling temperature across the world is okay for killing those things, but not botulism. And so for low acid things, because botulism is so heat resistant, we need a higher temperature to kill it. Or do we? Well, here is the thing. To kill any bacteria, including E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, all the bad bugs that get into food, there is a relationship between temperature and time. So if we get it up to a certain temperature and keep it at that temperature for a certain time, boom, they're dead. But if we lower that temperature, we can increase the time and accomplish the same thing. Lower temperature, longer time. Shorter time, higher temperature. That's the relationship. The mathematics on this time-temperature relationship with Clostridium botulinum have been worked out mathematically over and over and over again. There is 12 log reduction algorithm. If you understand logarithms, you'll know what that means, and I'm not going to take the time to explain it now. But a 12 log reduction algorithm that is used in the food safety industry to ensure that botulism is killed, and it works on that same principle. They've worked it out through logarithms that if the temperature is a certain at a certain level, then you need at least this much time to kill the organism in food, not in the laboratory, but in food, in the middle of a can, in a commercial canner, in the middle of a jar, in our home canning. That's all been worked out. There's a whole table of how that is worked out. Now, what the USDA did is that they just took on that table, and it's a curve, they took out a piece right here in the middle that seemed to be the most efficient in order to kill botulism spores, and they standardized that. It's 240 degrees, and if you use this processing time suggested by the USDA, then there's enough time in there at 240 degrees to kill botulism spores. That is very convenient for all of those of us who are home canners, because all we have to do is look up what the USDA says, and we can be confident that that temperature time relationship has been dealt with by what the USDA has said. And I have tested that out with 3 canners. You all know that if you've been with us for long enough. I used that very same 12 log reduction with my gadget that I put down inside the jars, inside those canners, to test to ensure that we were in the kill zone long enough for safety. Now, what the USDA did in standardizing that, they kept 240 as the constant, and then they selected the best time where a whole lot of food would fit in this bucket. And so we processed pints for 75 minutes, quarts for 90 minutes, for a whole lot of things, and that's standardized. That doesn't mean that it takes all of that time for every individualized food to kill that botulism, but it's within that range that is safe. And so we're doing kind of a span of processing times at 240 to kill it. Well, so does that mean that the botulism is alive, and oops, it hits 240 and boom, it kicks up its heels and dies? No. That means that they just extracted a certain piece of that table, and that's what they standardized. Can we lower the temperature and still kill botulism? You bet we can. But what happens at the time? We have to extend it. Can we lower it more? Yes, but extend the time more. Well, the problem is we don't have access to those tables, and there are so many variables that how do we know that 3 hours, and that's what this woman was saying, that the Amish woman said, with 3 hours of water bath, all you have to do is just boil your food at a rolling boil for 3 hours. Now, the particular recipe for meat was add a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of salt to a quart, and the salt really, that little amount of salt doesn't have anything to do with the preservation, so it's just flavoring. So it's the 3 hours of boiling time. So the Amish recipe for green beans, they add a tablespoon of vinegar to a quart of green beans. And I was really glad to hear that, because that acidification of the green beans is going to help with the preservation. I just tested it on a quart of our green beans, and adding a tablespoon of vinegar lowers the pH down to 4. And since 4.6 is the cutoff, then that has created an acid environment for those green beans, and botulism will not go to the vegetative state. If they can do it in 3 hours, can't the rest of us do it in 3 hours? Well, here's the science piece that you need to know. Water bath canning depends on the temperature of the water when it boils. Remember, the temperature and the time are related in canning. And so, boiling point at sea level is 212. Is 3 hours enough time to kill botulism? On my computer, I have my computer right here, and I have my Excel file up that has this 12 log reduction into an Excel file, where all I have to do is to plug in the temperature and the amount of time, and it will come up with a number. And that number tells me whether or not that amount of time with that temperature is safe. So I'm going to do that right now. Now here's the thing. Water boils at 212, but only at sea level. And so that is a variable. Water boils where we are at 203. And so if you are at sea level and you are water bath canning, your water is hotter than my water when I water bath can. Yours is 212, mine is 203. So what does that mean? Well, if you're here at 212 and I'm at 203, which is 9 degrees difference, then my time has to be longer if I'm going to get the same kill. But none of that was talked about when they said 3 hours for everything. Now, what is interesting is that the Amish live in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. I looked up the elevations there. Pretty much all of them are below 1,000. So their boiling point is, depending on where they live, 212, 211, 212, 211. Now, the thing about that is, no matter how much heat you put under your pot of boiling water, that water is not going to get any hotter. It's going to stay at the boiling point physically. It can't get any hotter unless you put it under pressure, and then it can get up to 240 degrees. And that's why we pressure can things. But let's just see, using this algorithm, whether 3 hours at sea level is enough time to kill botulism spores. Okay, so I'm going to plug in the correct information. So I'm putting in the boiling point at 212, and the amount of time is in minutes, and so that's 180 minutes for 3 hours, gives an answer of 1.4. Now I will tell you right here that the number that we need, the safety number, is 2. Now don't read anything into what 2 might mean. It's just a number. In mathematics, sometimes numbers just represent a cutoff point, and that's what that is. Anything 2 and above is safe. If it is below 2 in this particular algorithm, spores are not killed. And so that's not safe. 3 hours, even at sea level at 212, is not safe. Well, what would be safe? So let's change, we can't change the boiling point, but let's say 4 hours. So that's 240 minutes. Does that take them up into the safe zone? Ooh, 1.9. So 4 hours is a whole lot closer. Now what we need to do is ask ourselves, okay, so might there be other reasons why the Amish way of canning, water bath canning, 3 hours, water bathing everything for 3 hours, could yield a safe result time after time after time? Yes, there are other explanations for that. And one of those is that there may not be any spores, any botulism spores in the food that they're canning, and that can happen. That happens to a whole lot of rebel canners who claim that because they do it that way it's safe. There just weren't any botulism spores to go vegetative in the food in the first place. The incidence of botulism has been greatly reduced, not because the frequency of finding it out in nature has decreased, but because we are a whole lot safer in how we handle food now. One of the other possible reasons is the incidence for botulism is greater in homegrown, home-canned vegetables than it is in meats. Botulism is fairly rare in meat, so 3 hours of processing meat isn't necessarily safe because you can process it for 3 hours, but most likely because there wasn't any botulism there. I'm not going to take any chances. And so I'm going to stick with what the USDA says. And it's based on this science that I have right here. All right, so let's do a few more. So if you live between 1,000 and 2,000 feet, your boiling point is goes down a little bit. It goes down to about 210. And if you were to do things at, let's just say 4 hours, so that's 240 minutes, 1.5, not safe. So if you're at 1,000 up to 2,000, how many hours would you have to boil? I'm going to jump clear up to, let's do 6 hours, 360. There, you got it. If you boiled your green beans for 6 hours, you've killed that botulism. If you boiled your meat for 6 hours, you've got it. All right, now I can keep going up if you want. At let's just say at 3,000 feet, your boiling point goes down to 206. And if you were to do it for 6 hours, would that be safe? Nope, 1.4. So we have to increase your hours. Instead of 3 hours, instead of 6 hours, let's do 8, which is 480 minutes. 1.9. So 8 hours of boiling will put you right on the cusp of being safe, so I would go ahead and do 9. All right, now where we live, and I've plugged in, and our boiling point is 203. And so I would have to boil my green beans for 15 hours. 15 hours of boiling, because the temperature is 203, the time has to be extended 15 hours to ensure that botulism spores were taken care of. And so by knowing the science behind things, we've got to know what the relationship between temperature and time is for our elevation before we can even think about doing water bath canning and making it safe for us. So It's so important to judge things by the science behind. And so you can answer for yourself, is it safe? Well, it could be safe, but the logistics, and here's the thing, if I wanted to water bath canned meats or green beans or whatever, it would take me 15 hours. Do I want to make sure that my pot, my canning pot on the stove stays at a rolling boil for 15 hours? At some point in time, I'm going to have to add new boiling water. What if the temperature drops below? Oops, I have to start all over again to ensure safety. So that is why the USDA went into that table and just excised a certain piece of it that made it very efficient for us to do pressure canning and not have the worries of standing over a boiling pot to ensure that it stays boiling for the number of hours required. I hope this will help all of those of you that sent me this same link and to check this web page out. I found her interview very, very interesting, and I thought she presented it very, very fairly. But what people don't understand is that there's more to it than that. The science behind why 3 hours may work at lower elevations needs to be known. We simply do not want to jump on anybody's bandwagon unless we understand what it means for our own situation, for our own elevation, and how that may change from what is presented. So this is why we present the science behind things. We feel like our community are among the best informed among the canning population because you are learning the science behind what we do. And we are so pleased when we hear from you, and we would love to hear from you. Did you learn anything new in this video? Is it going to help you with your canning? What else related to this topic would you like to know? Let us know in your comments. We get lots of good suggestions for videos going forward, and we want to meet your needs. And so if you have things that you're struggling with, we are not judgmental. We will take something at face value and deal with it in terms of the science that is supporting it. So that's it for today's video, and we hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you at our next video. Thank you so much for joining us.